Here, no political correctness and no wokeism. You're listening to Underground USA.
Thanks for downloading, listening, and sharing. My name is Frank Salvato, and you're spending a few moments in Underground USA. It's like a broken record, and one we've screamed about for decades. Evidently, the congressional GOP is stone cold deaf, and quite frankly, I, for one, am sick of it. Congressional Republicans are readying the knives to insert into the backs of their own voters, again, in a surrender to Democrats on the critical issues of funding the government and protecting the sanctity of the ballot box. The legislation in question is the SAVE Act. SAVE stands for Securing America's Victory in Every Act, which, among other security measures, mandates proof of citizenship for voter registration in federal elections. It's crucial to safeguarding the sanctity of the ballot box, both from those who are here illegally and from those who would use the lax registration process to illegally register non-citizens to vote. And we know that's happening. But like so many times before, and after so many promises that it would never happen again, House Speaker Johnson, a Republican from Louisiana, is reportedly abandoning the measure, now seeking to fund the U.S. government through yet again another continuing resolution and without addressing election security at all. It should be noted here that the last time Congress passed a budget through the regular order process, which involves the full budget resolution process as intended by the Congressional Budget Act of 1974, was for the fiscal year 1997. This was signed in September of 1996. Since then, the government has been funded through a series of continuing resolutions, omnibus spending bills, or partial budget agreements rather than a comprehensive budget passed on time through regular order. Incidentally, the obligation of funding the government through the regular order process is one of the few mandatory obligations of Congress, mandated in the U.S. Constitution in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1, and Article 1, Section 9, Clause 7.
Article I, Section 8, Clause 1 of the U.S. Constitution grants Congress the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. It serves as the basis for Congress's authority to fund the government. Article I, Section 9, Clause 7 of the U.S. Constitution, also known as the Appropriations Clause, states that no money shall be drawn from the Treasury, but in consequence of appropriations made by law, and a regular statement and account of the receipts and expenditures of all public money shall be published from time to time. This clause mandates that all spending by the federal government must be authorized by Congress through appropriations.
When was the last time any of us saw the latter? And why can't Congress do one of the things it is actually mandated to do in the Constitution? Seriously, how many fucking post offices do they rename in a year? And how many foolish DEI resolutions have been passed? But a budget or a bill to codify the sanity that foreign nationals shouldn't have the right or privilege to vote in the sovereign elections of the United States? Apparently, Johnson's plan is to pass a clean bill, another continuing resolution this week, to fund the government through December 20th, just 5 days before Christmas. And we can all be certain that these game-playing assholes will sprint out of Washington immediately after to cash their paychecks and retreat behind their security walls for the holidays. Meanwhile, many, if not most, of the illegal immigrants who have been streaming across the border since the Biden-Harris regime opened the borders have been registered to vote in our federal elections. and the Republicans in Congress just pretty much said, have at it. Who do these opportunistic jagoffs represent? The foreign nationals or the citizens of the United States who elected them? Leave it to the Congressional GOP to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. They had the Democrats on the ropes. All they had to do was message around the mainstream media to lay the blame of a government shutdown at the feet of Chuck Schumer and the Squad and Nancy Pelosi, the Biden administration, and the rest of the deep state sycophants for their refusal to protect the ballot box, and it would have been game over. Harris needed the government to stay open, and the GOP could have blamed her own party for her demise. But nope. The milquetoast uniparty handmaidens that are the Congressional GOP flinched yet again in the hollow threats of Schumer and Pelosi and their deep state overlords to give the Marxist left the keys to the election. If there were ever a time for investigations and independent probes, it would be now. We the people need to know who's getting paid off for betraying their constituents. Hey, Johnson, and the rest of you deep state kowtowing ingrate assholes. When you're standing in the crowd at Harris's inaugural, hear these words from we the people. Thanks for nothing, and go fuck yourselves. When we come back, our segment on America's Third Watch broadcast nationally from our flagship station WGUL, AM 860 and FM 93.7 in Tampa, Florida. And you're damn right, I'm pissed.
You're listening to Underground USA.
Bank of America wants to control how you live your life. They're building a system to track your carbon emissions and monitor your driving, coming after your Second Amendment rights, favoring certain homebuyers based on their race. Bank of America is using a social score system straight out of China's playbook. Bank of America is obsessed with trying to control your life. What will they do next? Bank of America. Their lies start with their name.
Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Whenever they're asked a question about their proposed policies, they never give a straight answer. In fact, when they do give an answer, they take both sides of the issue.
In 2019, you said, quote, "There is no question I'm in favor of banning fracking." Do you still want to ban fracking?
No, and I made that clear on the debate stage in 2020, that I would not ban fracking. As vice president, I did not ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
In 2019, I believe, at a town hall, you said you were asked, would you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking on your first day in office? And you said, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So it changed in that campaign?
In 2020, I made very clear where I stand. We are in 2024, and I've not changed that position, nor will I going forward. I kept my word, and I will keep my word.
How are the voters supposed to know what they actually stand for?
Let me be very clear. I am unequivocal and unwavering in my commitment to Israel's defense and its ability to defend itself. And in equal measure, the Palestinians have security and self-determination and dignity.
Maybe that's the point.
Next question, please.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay.
My values have not changed.
News, insight, passion. AM 930, The Answer.
Now, here we are again. And last time we talked, Frank, we were talking about the exploding pagers and radios over in Lebanon. But now Israel, of course, is doing other attacks in Lebanon. The Lebanese, or I should not the Lebanese, but Hezbollah have said that they're going to, there'll be an open-ended period of conflict now, a battle of reckoning, they call it. Where do you see all this going?
Well, I think we have to be declarative first and foremost and say Hezbollah is part of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. So this is not a war necessarily against the country of Lebanon. It is a conflict between Israel and Iran through their proxy Hezbollah. Now, this will be an open-ended conflict until Israel beats them. That's the bottom line here. Every single one of their operatives in Lebanon has now been identified because of an exploding pager.
Yep.
So if you heard a boom, if you live in Lebanon and you heard a boom across the hall last week, you now know that your neighbor was a terrorist. And there are people, because of all of this, the people that aren't supportive of Hezbollah, and there are some in Lebanon. It used to be a Christian nation way back when, that aren't pro-Hezbollah, who are feeding information to Mossad and to the state of Israel and their defense forces. So this will last as long as Israel wants to allow the international community to hold them back in their goal of destroying Hezbollah, which they have every right to do. Hezbollah, like Hamas, is another organization that has been relentlessly picking at Israel for its entire existence. And we have to remember also that Hezbollah was the number one terrorist organization when it came to taking American lives before 9/11. Mm-hmm. So we shouldn't be supportive of them either. What'll be interesting to see is if after the election, when Hezbollah keeps on going, no matter who wins, if all of a sudden the same people who are pro-Palestinian on college campuses and in certain areas of the United States are now suddenly pro-Hezbollah. Because if they are, that identifies them as something completely different and codifies the fact that they are anti-Israel and anti-Semitic instead of just for the poor Palestinians.
Indeed. Well, certainly there will be a lot of propaganda coming out of this, kind of similar to what happened when Israel went after Hamas. But as you said, they have a right to go after Hezbollah. They have a right to defend themselves. They've actually, I was seeing a report earlier, Frank, about, they've actually create these underground hospitals so that they can be safe from rocket attacks. They're very well versed in how they try to protect their people, but they've also gone a step further. They're warning people in southern Lebanon to get out of the way because they're coming in to get Hezbollah.
They've done that in every step of the way, everywhere they've ever had to use their defense forces, period. They give more forewarning for what they're going to do than any other fighting force in the history of time. So this idea, when you listen to the UN and the Hamas leadership and Hezbollah leadership about how bloodthirsty and targeted the Israeli people are against the civilians in these areas, that's just a load. It really is a bunch of BS. And quite frankly, it's about time that the Israeli Defense Forces, after all they've been through, and quite frankly, after all the world's been through with what's coming out of the Middle East's radical Islamo-fascist groups and supporters, it's time to wipe these people like that off the face of the map. I know it sounds very river to the sea, but when you don't start things and someone is constantly attacking you and constantly plotting against you and your people and the well-being of the free world, it's time for the world to take a stand against this. We were all on the same page after 9/11 about this. You saw countries from around the world coming together to say, no, this will not stand. And suddenly, 23 years later, we're going, well, now let's talk about the poor Hamas people and the poor Hezbollah people. Screw Hamas and Hezbollah.
I wonder, Frank, sometimes, especially as we're watching what's happening in the world situation, if we're looking forward, and we're not really, but just for sake of argument, a Kamala Harris commander-in-chief dealing with wars in Israel, between Israel and Hamas, Israel and Hezbollah, dealing with the Ukraine war, dealing with what a former CENTCOM security chief talked about, the idea that our bases in the Middle East can be overrun by Iran. I can't imagine what she would be able to do with this, because it involves having to think on your feet, make decisions, or have some understanding of what's really going on.
Well, you can tell definitively what's going to happen in any scenario where she needs to make commander-in-chief decisions. It's going to be a continuation of what's happening today. Joe Biden is not running anything today. You are incredibly delusional if you believe that the buck stops with Joe Biden. This entire administration has been run by a committee. It has been run by Obama 2.0. And it's starting to echo throughout the halls. You hear Obama 2.0 and you roll your eyes. But you need to understand that these are the people behind the scenes who make the decisions and tell the person sitting behind the Resolute desk what they must do. These are the Samantha Powers. These are the Susan Rices. These are the people who are pulling the strings. So what you get now is what you get then, should that come to pass. Nothing is going to change. I take that back. The only thing that will change is I think the decisions will get a little stupider.
Yeah, right. No, I agree. I agree. Well, I mean, this is a big time thing. You know, typically you would think that having an executive branch ruled by committee would be so outrageous that this would dominate, the news all the time, that there would be public outrage, but there's nothing about this.
Well, and that's because we've come to understand that presidents have cabinets and they have advisors, and that's a good thing. For a group of people with great knowledge to sit down and give their opinions to the person who makes the decisions is a good thing. But that's not what's happening today. They get together, they decide the consensus, they make the decision. And then they inform the president what he's going to do. That's not the way our government is supposed to be operating. So there's a difference between the cabinet and advisors and taking learned advice and being puppet mastered. And that's what the Democrats have installed for the American people. And I say installed, and I use that word specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what they've done. We didn't vote to be run by committee.
Right.
That's not what the Constitution lays out for us, yet that's what Democrats give us. And I think that gets a lot of short shrift when we talk about the choice that we have coming in November. It's not, you got people who are anti-Trump have to get over the junior high personality contest that the media has laid out for us. This is not a contest of personalities. I don't care who you like and who you don't like. This is about the direction and how the country is going to be run. At least with Donald Trump, you have a decider. The buck stops with him.
Right.
He listens to people who do talk to him. Sometimes he takes their advice. Sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes it's a good decision. Sometimes it's a bad one. But it ends and starts with him. With Biden and with a Harris presidency, we don't know who's got the most say.
Well, that's right. And especially when it comes to things in the Middle East, when it comes to Iran and their satellites. And, you mentioned the cabinet meetings, the cabinet, and they have meetings with the president. Well, can you imagine if Nancy Reagan came in and ran a cabinet meeting and President Reagan said, "It's all yours, kid. You take over now," or something? I mean, they would just vilified Reagan for that. But this happened just the other day with Joe Biden and Dr. Jill.
They tried to do that with Reagan. They said Nancy Reagan was calling the shots behind the scenes. Nancy Reagan never sat at the head of the cabinet conference table.
Right.
That never happened. And quite frankly, Jill Biden is not covered by executive privilege.
Yep.
The U.S. Supreme Court didn't say, "Oh, and spouses." So anything anything that Jill Biden said in that cabinet meeting is actionable.
Yeah.
And that means after, and pray to God, after Donald Trump gets in, if any of those decisions harm the nation, she can be found responsible for this. So it really was a stupid move to give her that photo op. I know she's a power-hungry, greedy little tart. We understood that for the way that she got to have the Biden last name. But this is unacceptable. And if she shows up there again, the Republicans on the Hill should be up in arms about it.
Yeah. Well, then obviously the soundbite that's been making the rounds on Sunday was Joe Biden going, "Who's next?" I mean, this is just, it's not good. And he's, and you know what though? But do people have like a twisted view, like, well, it's a good thing he's not really in charge, that there are these people that are just making these decisions because he's out of it. He's out to lunch.
People who hold those opinions don't understand how government is supposed to work here and exist constitutionally illiterate.
No kidding. No kidding. But what I mean, I'm talking about the perception.
It doesn't, I don't care about perception. I perceive this. Okay, good for you. What does the Constitution say? Period. Dot.
Yep.
We get into so much trouble when we decide, well, it feels this way, and I'd like to see that. We don't have a government based on emotion. That's what gave us DEI. That's what gave us wokeism and political correctness. That's not okay. So if you feel the government has to do something, or it's your perception that this, stay away from power. Because you don't understand the Constitution, you don't understand government, and quite frankly, I really don't care how you feel about it.
Well, but this is one of the reasons why Harris and her campaign has this mode of, here's my vision, here's my economic vision, here's my vision for the country, and it's not like I'm going to manage this and make sure that we're constitutionally correct, we're enforcing the law, et cetera, et cetera. It's here's my wish list, and if you like it, just vote for me so I can get into power.
When you use the rhetoric that the left has been using ever since Clinton, all this emotionally charged, boy, I wish and I'll do it, and I promise to, you're preying on the emotions of the fickle. Unless you're coming out and explaining your policy down to the point where it starts to get boring, because there's so many facts and so many numbers and so many ways that they're explaining how it's going to happen and who has to sign off, and this is the bureaucracy it has to go through, then you're preying on the emotions of someone you're trying to dupe. And that's what the Democrats are doing today.
Frank, what do you think? Obviously, Trump has said no to a CNN debate, a second debate. But what do you think? Why does Kamala Harris say she wants to have one?
Because she wants a chance to get under his skin again. It has nothing to do with policy. It has nothing to do with a debate. And I'm so sick and tired of the media and even the political parties talking about how crucial these quote-unquote debates are. There's no debating taking place. There's no debating taking place. There hasn't once been a time in the last, I'm going to say 30 years, where they have put out, where the moderators put out an issue and ask both candidates the same question and let them debate the topic. That's not what happens in these clown shows that they call debates. These are gotcha moments for the political parties to get sound bites. Or pictures of Kamala rolling her eyes, or Donald Trump being upset because Kamala has once again said something that isn't truthful. They serve no purpose, and nobody gleans anything useful as far as information is concerned from these dog and pony shows. Mm-hmm. So debate? No. At least be honest about what they are, but they are not debates. And what they want to do is they want to showcase that if you pick at somebody enough, call them enough names, And don't answer questions. Say false things about them that they might get upset.
And then you can look over and say, "You're poor man." Look at you. Yeah.
Put your hand underneath your chin. Look condescending into the camera so that your sycophant ABC cameraman can make sure you've got the best look for an unknowing and uneducated nation that's watching. No. If Kamala Harris wants people to understand what her policies are, she'll go on Fox. She'll go on Newsmax. She'll go everywhere her voters aren't to explain her policies. If she were truly interested in explaining who she is and what she stands for, but she's not. And this is what David Plouffe and the Democrat machine, the Obama Democrat machine that is running her campaign right now, wants to have. They don't want you to know what she stands for. Why would they want to do that? She's a Marxist. And, she's coming out with a speech later this week, I guess, about the big economic speech.
Right.
You're gonna hear about $6,000 child credit, $50,000 for new business startups. You're gonna hear about more homes and home constructions and how that creates jobs. Blah blah blah. She's not going to tell you about where the money's going to come from to be able to pay for this with a government that's tens of trillions of dollars in debt, even as she says she still wants to ship more money over to the Ukraine for their war while denying Israel money for theirs.
Well, no, you're hit upon something here. The idea, it's the everything show. It's everything. I'll just promise everything to everybody. There's an unlimited amount of money. I can't say we can only do this, we can't do that. Because she doesn't want to ever say no to some constituency group, unless you're supporting Trump, of course. But again, nobody gets the impression that she would ever be able to make a tough decision about actually running the country. It's all about satisfying certain interest groups and joy.
This goes back to what we were talking about before. She's running an emotionally based campaign to prey on your emotions. The Democrats, the DNC, David Plouffe, Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, they're all preying on your emotions to either try to get you to say, boy, that would be wonderful, wouldn't it? That would be joyful. That would be great. Or we can't have that, and that damn orange man, he's going to do that, so we can't have that. But there's no specifics there. Mm-hmm. I had somebody on social media say, well, Kamala Harris's policies for the border, at least she is laying them out. Trump just talked about the size of the crowds at his rally. I said he had 4 years and he showed you what he was going to do.
Right. That's exactly right. The proof's in the pudding, for sure, on that. But, Frank, when we think about policy and we think about, what makes this country go, there's a lot of rejection going on right now of some of the left policies, obviously, but in particular, and you mentioned the term DEI. Well, it looks like Caterpillar is joining the ranks of numerous other companies that are just, throwing their DEI initiative things overboard because they find out it doesn't work. It actually is harmful, and they're getting out of it. So if Kamala Harris thinks that the country's more in line with her particular viewpoint on this, she might be wrong.
Well, and it's because companies like Dunkin' Donuts and Caterpillar and the rest of the Coca-Cola and the rest of the sycophantic corporate boards who decided to, well, we're going to try this diversity, equity, and inclusion because it is the fair thing to do. They got sucked into the emotion game.
Yep.
They got sucked into it's got to be fair game. And all of a sudden, their product sales went down. Bud Light. Their product sales went down. Nobody wanted their stuff anymore. They did other choices. It's because they didn't operate in the free market. They decided to manipulate it because of the emotion that they felt and the decisions that they were making. We live in a meritocracy, not a democratic socialist society that's constructed by the government. So if you have a corporate board that is making decisions based on emotion instead of what the market dictates, get your money out of that corporation because they don't care about your bottom line or your 401k. They care about how they, again, here's this word, perceived.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right. And then, of course, in the long run, these policies are so destructive that it plays into the Marxist agenda of creating such chaos, that things fall apart. And then, here we are. We'll pick up the pieces and we'll finally make the fair, society that we've always talked about, which really means we rule over you now.
Yeah, BlackRock can swoop in and buy you up, just like they have been buying all the homes, the single-family homes from coast to coast for the last 3.5 years, from the beginning of when COVID started. And now the Democrats get to say there's a housing crisis. Really? There's a housing crisis? Okay, we can fix this today. BlackRock, you've got trillions of dollars in assets. You bought up all the single-family homes. If the government wants to jack with somebody and be completely communist in how they go about their agenda, force your buddy BlackRock to sell those homes for pennies on the dollar to the people that need houses. Suddenly, you're going to see BlackRock get really, really capitalist.
Right, exactly. Well, but that's also one of the rules, right? Create a crisis. Create these things.
That's how you bring about transformative change. Create the crisis, wait for people to panic, and then have at least something that sounds good that you can sell them so they put you or keep you in power, and then you just go about what you have to do to affect that transformative change. This is how it happens. If it's not at the point of a gun, this is how Marxists change things. They promise pie-in-the-sky stuff that can't and never works, and then you end up with not only chaos, but you end up with oppression, totalitarianism, and a destroyed economy. It's happened every single location it's ever been tried.
Well, you're right, but this is again why Kamala Harris will tell everybody, I'm gonna bring down the cost of living. I'm just gonna fight price gouging, but it's this ridiculous nonsense that doesn't have any bearing on reality, but it sounds good. Oh, she's going to fight price gouging, but I didn't know this was a huge problem.
In order to fight price gouging the way she wants to, they have to understand exactly what's valuable in the marketplace. But if you don't have free choice to define what that value is, it's an arbitrary number. That's communism.
Yep, that's exactly right. And that's where they kind of want to go with all this stuff. No doubt about that.
You're listening to Underground USA.
Our First Amendment right to free speech is under attack by woke activists and politicians. Wokeism seeks to suppress opinions and ideas that are deemed offensive, insensitive, or problematic, thereby stifling the free exchange of ideas and the pursuit of truth. It emphasizes social justice, identity politics, political correctness, and the regulation of language, and relies on euphemisms and ambiguous language to create the illusion of consensus, thus avoiding confrontation with opposing viewpoints. Wokeism is antithetical to free speech because it stifles the free exchange of ideas and the pursuit of truth. This is in direct opposition to the principles of free speech. Wokeism is an ideological cancer shopped by those who want to control you. This November, we have an opportunity to render wokeness to the ash heap of history. Vote smart. Vote against wokeness and those who would use it to control you.
And, we have to stay woke. Like, everybody needs to be woke. And you can talk about if you're the wokest or woker, but just stay more woke than less woke.
Who helped cause soaring gas prices? BlackRock. Who contributed to outrageous housing prices? BlackRock. BlackRock and Larry Fink spent years harassing oil and gas companies, making them divest from fossil fuels. Now you feel the pain. And BlackRock-owned companies are snatching up houses, crippling families. Now BlackRock's former ESG czar, Brian Deese, is Biden's economic advisor, crushing America from within. That's what BlackRock is really about.
If you like the podcast, head on over to undergroundusa.com and sign up for our Substack. It delivers the podcasts and new articles directly into your inbox, circumventing the censors of mainstream media and the social media complexes. And be sure to talk politics, religion, and current events with your friends, families, acquaintances, and colleagues. That's where we find out that we have more in common than we do in difference. That's where the false narrative of a divide and conquer that the elite try to sell us every second of every day through their mainstream media mouthpieces, that's where that narrative falls apart. Do it calmly. Don't be caustic about it. Just talk. You're going to find out we have a lot more in common than in difference. And that defeats the political opportunists. You're listening to Underground USA. My name is Frank Salvato. God bless the United States of America. We'll be right back after this.